Hello everyone and welcome to the BM Hunter Guide. In this series of Hunter Guide videos, I will be covering anything that I can think of that in my opinion makes a part of mastering BM Hunter playstyle, including build variations, gear, side stat prioritizing, legendaries, pet utility and your ultimate role as a BM Hunter in a PvE environment. Out of the PvE content, I will be covering basics and beginner suggestions, ending up with an in-depth guide for the high Mythic Plus key runs, which is the very reason I'm starting with these guides. Now that you get the idea of what my videos will be about, let's get into it. First of all, let's give a quick look at the races you can pick as a Hunter class. Before I end up putting the race's advantages out on the table, I want to say that I encourage you to go with the race that you find the most enjoyable to play with. However, if you do want to min-max your performance on DPS charts, there are certain races that are slightly above others when it comes to raw DPS. On the Horde side, there are two races that fit in those spots, specifically Orc being one of those. Orcs come with the cooldown that you have, the damage increase cooldown that basically increases your attack power on 2-minute cooldown, and it's pretty much useful when you want to dash in some extra DPS aligned with other cooldowns that you have. Other than that, they have command passive that slightly increases the damage dealt by your pets, which is not that much of a game breaking, but still 1% is 1%. And they have a hardiness which reduces the stun effects on your character, which is useful in PvP mostly. The second race on the Horde side that I would find worthy mention are the Trolls, of course.
Yeah, man.
As a Troll, you have a cooldown called Berserking. It's a 3-minute cooldown and it increases your haste by 15% for 10 seconds. It is, I would say, similar to the Orc cooldown, and it's useful if you can align it together with the rest of your cooldowns as a BM Hunter and increase your overall DPS by it. They also come with the Da Voodoo Shuffle, and it decreases the duration of movement impairing effects by 20% on yourself, which is not that useful in PvE, I guess in PvP and some situations. You come also with the regeneration, which increases your health regen basically. And that's about it for the Trolls. Now let's take a look at the Alliance side and what races you could pick. First off, we have humans. They have passive called Human Spirit, which allows you to have 2% more of all secondary stats from all sources, meaning that you will have slight advantage in critical strike, haste, mastery, versatility, whatever you have, which is good as a BM Hunter because your side stats are pretty much important. Next, they have a 2-minute cooldown that removes all stun effects. It can be helpful in PvE and Mythic Plus dungeons and in PvP as well. And they come with the passive, which increases your reputation gains by 10%. This can be also helpful when farming some reputations and whatnot. Okay, and the last race that I will cover in this video are the Draenei, the one that I'm currently playing with. They come with a heroic presence. It increases your strength, agility and intellect by 425 scales with level, which means that in a Hunter case you get 425 extra agility when you're level 110. Other than that, they have Gift of the Naru, which is a useful 3-minute cooldown that is basically healing over time, that heals 20% of the caster's total health over 5 seconds. You can use this in Mythic Plus or any other content to heal yourself over time, to help your healer with healing some damage over time abilities, and to heal your tank or whoever. You can cast this on yourself or your party member, it doesn't matter. And to sum this up, basically you can, I encourage you to pick any race that you want to play and that you find the best looking and whatnot, because it's not all that game breaking. It's helpful, but not that important. Okay, so moving on with the BM Hunter basics, let's sum up the class. BM Hunters are basically unique range DPS that is highly mobile, and you have absolutely no reason to stand still while doing DPS, which makes it pretty much easy to handle complicated bosses mechanics while doing challenging content and raiding and whatnot. And your rotation is basically pretty much straightforward. Whatever build you play, it's not that complicated, and it makes it easy to play, basically. I don't know, some people might say it's a downside that the class is boring because of that, but trust me, if you're doing challenging content, anything that has a lot of mechanics going on while the fight is going on, you won't be bored, trust me. Now let's talk about the gear. As a BM Hunter, you have a couple of things that you want to keep your mind on when it comes to gear. Agility being your main stat is not the most important when it comes to the DPS contribution. Basically, the most important are your side stats. Depending on what build you play, they change around in priority. As for the tier set gear, you do want to have at least 2 set bonus of Tomb of Sargeras tier. Preferably 4 set bonus when you get your hands on them. As you can see, they are quite useful. Okay, let's talk about the builds. In this video I will cover a total of 3 builds that you can use, starting with the Dire Frenzy build. The talents for this build are looking like this: Way of the Cobra, Dire Frenzy, Post Haste, Bestial Fury, Binding Shot, a Murder of Crows, and a Killer Cobra. This build benefits mostly out of mastery, so if you do play this build you must have high mastery, and you should keep your haste rating at about 20%. So how this build works: your most hard-hitting ability is Kill Command. Make sure you use it every time its cooldown is ready. Other than that, make sure you're keeping up your Dire Frenzies basically all the time, whenever you have them ready off cooldown. Other than that, your final tier talent, Killer Cobra, it changes around your Bestial Wrath. So basically, while your Bestial Wrath is active, your Cobra shots reset the cooldown on Kill Command. So how this looks: when you activate your Bestial Wrath, your rotation is Kill Command, Cobra Shot, Kill Command, Cobra Shot, Kill Command, Cobra Shot, all the time until this expires. You want to cast as much of this rotation as possible of Kill Commands and Cobra Shots. Other than that, about your cooldowns. With this build you have Aspect of the Wild normally, you have Titan's Thunder, and you have a Murder of Crows. How you want to use these cooldowns? Basically, you want to align them together as much as possible. When you use Bestial Wrath, use all other cooldowns available and start bursting down the target. And pretty much that's about it. I would mention that the most useful legendary that you can have for this build is Roar of the Seven Lions. As you can see, it reduces the focus cost of all abilities by 15% while your Bestial Wrath is active, which means that you will get extra Kill Commands, Cobra Shots while your Bestial Wrath is active, which is awesome because it's more DPS. After the Frenzy build we come to the Stomp build. Here we have talents looking like this: Way of the Cobra, Stomp, Post Haste, One with a Pack, Biting Shot, a Murder of Crows, and a Killer Cobra. Difference between this and the Dire Frenzy build are next. First off, your side stats. If you want to play this build, you must have at least 35% critical rate. If you have less than 35% critical, just don't bother with it because it will not work. The Dire Frenzy will do more DPS. So, as I said, you need critical rate, 35% at least, and around 40% ideally. So basically 40% crit, and you want to keep your haste at 20% or above, meaning like from 20 to 22% haste. That's okay. Next thing, legendary. This might not be the must-have legendary, but I find it very useful for this build if you want to play it. It's Soul of the Huntmaster. What this does, basically, it allows you to have Bestial Fury talent, which is really good, together with one with a pack, which is optional for the Stomp build. So you're benefiting, you will be spending a lot of time in Bestial Wrath with this build, and 15% extra damage from in Bestial Wrath is really good to have. Other than Soul of the Huntmaster, I recommend Roar of the Seven Lions. Again, this effect is really good because you will spend a lot of time in Bestial Wrath, and to reduce the focus cost of all your abilities mean you will get more abilities and Cobra shots and everything during this cooldown. Okay, next, how this build works. Well, basically you have your kill command. Normally you have Dark Beast. You're casting same as the Bestial Fury. You're using kill command every time you can. Every time it's off cooldown, you're using it. Stomp. You're using Stomp similar way to the Dire Frenzy. You're trying to keep up as many Dire Beasts out as possible. So you're just trying to keep at least one at a time, and track your charges because they will reset often because of one with the pack. The charges will reset often and you will spam your Bazooka basically. You still have your Killer Cobra, so your Bestial Wrath works the same way. When you activate it together with all of your cooldowns, you are spamming it. Kill command, Cobra shot, kill command, Cobra shot, kill command, Cobra shot. When you have two charges, just let one out. Dire Frenzy charge. Kill command, Cobra shot, kill command, Cobra shot, Dire Beast. And that's how your rotation works basically. You will get a lot of Dire Beasts up, and you will reduce the cooldown of your Bestial Wrath by a lot. Means you will spend a lot, as I said before, you will spend a lot of time in Bestial Wrath. So that's pretty much how this build works. And for the third variation of builds, I will show you the build that is actually really similar to the Stomp build, but you're not using Killer Cobra, you're using Aspect of the Beast instead. Why is that? Because at one point, when you gear up and your artifact level relics, when you get higher item level of your relics and your weapon item level is high enough, and your overall item level is high enough, you reach the point when your Cobra shots deal more and more damage, and basically you reach the point when it's not worth spamming kill command over Cobra shots. And it's hard to know when you reach that point. You have to use simulation add-ons, you have to test your DPS on training dummies and stuff like that, but yeah, the point is that your Cobra shots are now doing more damage, and you're speccing Aspect of the Beast. Basically what this does is that you're losing the Killer Cobra effect when you activate your Bestial Wrath. The Cobra Shot isn't resetting this anymore. Kill command isn't being reset. So your rotation is basically similar as before. It's just that you're not spamming Cobra Shot kill command during the Bestial Wrath. You're just spamming Cobra Shots, getting dire beasts up, and you're casting off the cooldown your kill command. And yeah, this build actually gets ahead with DPS. As I said, when you reach a certain point with your gear, this build will pull ahead with DPS. If you noticed, I removed the point from Murder of Crows to Wally. Why is that? Because most of the time I spend in the Mythic Plus dungeons and content like that, I usually run Wally, to be honest, because if you do want a high single target DPS, you're going for Murder of the Crows. But Volley is a simple talent which allows you to just toggle it on. When you toggle it on, every auto shot you cast is doing volley of arrows around it, and it's doing AoE damage by itself. So it's really useful in Mythic Plus trash clearing and in cleaving overall. If you have boss with the adds, you will passively cleave the adds with that additional damage. So I prefer using this over Murder of Crows for the most of my Mythic Plus time. And the legendaries, they stay the same. Everything stays the same. It's just that you're not using Killer Cobra anymore. You're using Aspect of the Beast. And that's about it for the Aspect of the Beast Stomp build, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, let's go over the crowd control that you have as a hunter and that you will probably use in Mythic Plus dungeons on higher keys. Let's start with the Freezing Trap. Freezing Trap is basically an immobilizing trap that works pretty simple. You have a target, you have a circle, aim it, shoot, you will freeze the target. You will use this trap on big trash pools, before the big trash pools, to trap certain mobs and to make it easier, because on some high mythic keys in dungeons, trash mobs can be fatal and one-shot your tank if you're not careful enough with it. So basically, you will sometimes use this. Next, you will often use Dart Trap, basically. What this does is, let's get some mobs on us. You will basically, on the bigger trash mobs, in the Mythic Plus dungeons with high key and fortified affix, the trash mobs are just killing tank, really easy. So what the tanks usually do, they slow the big packs and kite them around. That's when you jump in, you're putting Dart Trap down, and you're helping your tank doing this. You're helping him actually kite the trash mobs from one side to other and stuff like that. So it's pretty useful. Your third way of CC is your binding shot. Now let's pull some mobs for that case. In Mythic Plus dungeons, this will happen basically. Your tank is pulling the trash, they will be grouped up. That's when you come in, you're doing your binding shot, and make sure that your tank knows that you did it. Basically what your tank will do, he will move away, move around a little bit, and get the trash mobs stunned. And that's pretty much it for this CC. Let's get over the pets that you should be using as a Beast Mastery Hunter. Well, basically, pets are really great utility as a Beast Master, so you should have your Bloodlust pet. It can be Core Hound or any other pet family that has Bloodlust, basically. It is a must to have. Second, you need Combat Res pet. Basically, pet like Crane or whatever you can find that has the Combat Res effect. And how you want to use it in Mythic Plus? Well, if your group doesn't have any other player that can bloodlust, you are using your bloodlust pet. You're most likely gonna bloodlust on the first boss in 99% of the cases. You will bloodlust. Fight is going on. Eventually, you kill the boss, and you will have your insanity debuff. Basically, after you kill the boss, just instantly dismiss your pet and summon your combater's pet. You will use this pet all the time in the dungeon, remaining time of the dungeon, while insanity lasts. When insanity is about to expire and you're able to use bloodlust again, you will just dismiss this pet and summon your bloodlust pet again and be ready to bloodlust. And one last thing to say in this video is about the legendaries. First things first, I know they are RNG, that you might not have all the legendaries that I talked about in the builds and everything, but just combine the legendaries that you have so far and try to make the use of them, test them out, and you will end up in decent results. But I want to say something about one specific legendary, and that's Pridus. This one is used in high Mythic Plus key runs. It will basically be a lifesaver in some mechanics. It can be a lifesaver on bosses, even on trash mobs, because trash mobs can be pretty insane on high keys. And on the bosses, well, you do have your aspect of the turtle. That's totally fine, but turtle alone is on 3-minute cooldown, and sometimes it may not be enough to save you from inevitable death, basically. So that's when Pridus come in. And when you're doing high Mythic Plus dungeons, you should always have a from the legendaries that you currently have, like belt and the ring. Let's say that you have those two. You should have a spare belt that you can replace anytime without much consequences for your side stats. You can replace that and you can equip Pridus, and you're fine. You can keep going. Once that you're past the part of the dungeon where you need the Pridus, you can just switch it back and you're good to go. And that's about it pretty much. Pridus is pretty useful. And that's about it for this video, folks. I hope you found it helpful. I hope you liked it. And if you do have some other questions about anything regarding hunters or Mythic Plus dungeons, feel free to comment, to, I don't know, just ask anything that you can think of. I will do my best to try to cover those subjects, and yeah, that's it pretty much. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and thank you for watching, guys. See ya.